The International Newsnet World Report is a national television news show available in more than 30 million homes. We broadcast daily real news the networks won't tell you. We are solely viewer-supported. That means you. You can donate at our website, INNWorldReport.net. We hope you find the following interview informative and helpful.
We're joined on the phone in Hawaii by Mike Rivero, the webmaster and creator of WhatReallyHappened.com. Welcome to INN, Mike.
Thanks, Lenny. Thanks for having me on.
Mike, What Really Happened is one of the main news sources that INN goes to get breaking stories. And if our viewers don't know already, it's an incredible site which is way ahead of the curve on many things. What is What Really Happened looking at right now? What are the latest things that are coming out from your website?
Well, obviously, the issue which is uppermost in our minds right now is this incident with the 15 British sailors and Marines that have been arrested by Iran. And frankly, this strikes us as a staged or manufactured crisis that Britain has intentionally created and fanned as part of the justification for the coming invasion of Iran. This tends to remind me a great deal about last summer's war in Lebanon, pardon me, in which Israel started out claiming that their soldiers had been kidnapped on Israeli territory, and then later we found out, in point of fact, that the Israelis had been deep inside Lebanon when arrested. So this seems to be, again, a repeat of that same play. There's a lot of people who are calling this the modern Gulf of Tonkin incident, which was used to launch the Vietnam War. What is emerging right now is that the area where the activity was taking place is a remaining disputed border between Iran and Iraq going back to the Iran-Iraq War. The map that Britain has been showing to claim that the incident took place in Iraqi waters, it turns out the line that's drawn on there is rather arbitrary, and neither Iran or Iraq officially recognize it. So anytime you're operating in a disputed border area, that you're just asking for a confrontation, because from Iran's point of view, it is Iranian waters, and from Iraq's point of view, it is Iraqi waters. There is no internationally recognized border in the region since the end of the Iran-Iraq War.
But what about this? What about this aerial photograph, the surveillance photograph taken from satellite that the British are showing? They seem to want to depict this as a definitive line.
Well, that's the problem. The line is simply one that Britain has drawn on the map, and Iran doesn't recognize it. And again, this goes back to the Iran-Iraq War. It's a disputed area that they were operating in. And this gets back to the idea that, just because Iraq and Britain say the line is one place, really doesn't make it so if Iran, in point of fact, is saying that the line is somewhere else. It's never really been settled. So it was very reckless for Britain to be operating in this area to begin with. And again, going back to the dodgy dossier that Tony Blair was waving around as part of the run-up to the war in Iraq, it's very hard to trust anything that Britain is saying now, again, as we look at what is obviously a run-up to a new war in Iran.
Michael, there was also the incident that was reported this morning by the Iranians that British soldiers had surrounded an Iranian embassy in Iraq, and yet again Britain has denied this, and I believe that international sentiment is siding with Britain on this. What can you tell us about that?
Well, what Britain is now saying is that the British troops were not shooting at the Iranian embassy, but were engaged in a firefight with insurgents who just happened to be very close to the Iranian embassy at the time. So whether or not the embassy was actually surrounded is very much in doubt. But on the other hand, maybe starting a firefight right next to the Iranian embassy is just another way for Britain to put more pressure on Iran, to ramp up the tensions a little bit more, to continue to provoke Iran until Iran responds in a way that Britain can use to justify an attack.
Well, also we've heard yesterday that Britain has suspended formal diplomatic ties with Iran. This seems like a further escalation also.
Yeah, absolutely. It's basically, for all their talk about not wanting confrontation, Britain is continuing to just be as provocative as they can. Britain is just now taking the position officially that there will be no negotiations whatsoever, that Iran must immediately release the Marines and sailors or face the consequences. And of course, consequences means armed intervention. And again, this is just, the excuse to start the war that everybody knows the U.S. and Great Britain have been planning and preparing for. They've got all the military forces in the area. They're ready to go. This is just the manufactured excuse to go for it. And if you think about it, it really is shameful that Great Britain is just throwing these 15 young people's lives away as a chip to start the war, in which, of course, thousands more lives will be lost. War with Iran is going to cost the lives of many more soldiers than Iraq did, because Iraq was militarily very weak from years of sanctions, but Iran has a modern, well-equipped military force. They're fighting for their homes. They're not the invaders, and that's going to make it very, very difficult for the invading forces, especially when they get into the urban environment where really the advantage is with the local residents.
Mike, your opinion, most people that observe this conflict or potential conflict do see both sides. They see that Iran is not completely blameless in this, and they're holding their ground, but at the same time they may also have a motive for conflict. Do you see any blame on the side of the Iranians?
I've seen a lot of mistakes on the side of the Iranians coming out with this latest letter from the female sailor, Tammy, calling for withdrawal of troops from Iraq. I think that very obviously is a case where Iran is putting words into her mouth, and I think it was a very bad mistake for them to make. But going back to the very beginning of this whole escalation, Iran is attempting to stand by the terms of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which gives them the right to build nuclear power stations and to make the fuel rods for them. The United States signed